goes wrong, what is the limit? What is the limit of his liability? Is it to the? It's common to say that they take 100% of the contract price. So that means if the contract price is $5 million, contractor, any liabilities above $5 million, you're responsible for it. So you just pay $5 million and the company will take care of the remaining. But so also, you see contracts that have a cap of a limitation of liability, but it still gives an exception. To tell you that, for example, exception might be that if there's a gross negligence or willful misconduct on part of the contractor, that $5 million, 100% cap will be exceeded. So that means the money collected, the sales can borrow money or refund money to pay for the liability incurred. So these are things that needs to be taken care of in the contract. We also have taxes also, is there a service? Is there a hiring equipment? Different taxes. VAT is 7.5%. Yeah, we stay at what we told taxes is 5% or 10%, depending on services or if it's a rental. There also corporate income taxes, there's personal income taxes. Then there's also field-specific taxes. For example, the Petroleum Industry Act introduced hydrocarbon tax for deep offshore operations, which has to be paid. Then if you are using a vessel offshore, for example, deep offshore, you have to pay 2% cabotage to NIMASA, Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency. You have to pay to them. Then there are a lot of other taxes here and there. There's NCD tax 1%. So these are the taxes that are general. There's also tax that's sector specific in the power, in the oil and gas industries, which needs to be factored into the contract. Why? Because sometimes the commercial guys will crunch the numbers together and say, oh, we're looking at 13% profits. But if the contract now says you are responsible for the taxes and you're paying VAT of 7.5%, you're paying withholding tax of 5%, that's 12.5 already. You're paying maybe 1% of NCD tax, 10.5. So that means your 13% profit margin is being eroded by taxes already. So technically, you are 0.5% in deficit. So that's why it's important that even as lawyers, we need to also have a bit of knowledge about the surrounding field, taxation, insurance, because they have a way of impacting on the bottom figures. So it's quite important that we also have a knowledge, at least. They are experts in the field. Most companies have departments like taxation, insurance department, which you can always consult to also review with you. But it's good for you to know that, this is when I need help from these experts, and of course, ask for help when required. Or else you just feel that you have a good contract on paper, and financially the company is not good for it. So it's also important to have a commercial knowledge of contracting. It makes you better understand, drafting and review of contracts. So we also look at financial securities. Usually, a lot of bank bonds apply, APG, that's advance payment guarantees that you'll be asked, because sometimes you have to pay upfront. And pay upfront, how do you ensure that your money is secured? So you have to performance bonds in the bank. A bond basically guarantees you, the bank saying that, take up this responsibility in the effect of default. You can come to the bank and get your money back. Basically, that's what a guarantee on a bond is all about. So there's also insurance bonds also, it's a type of bond. So things you factor in your contracting. Then of course, an important part of contracting is also dispute resolution, which is also a subtopic on that, which I'll take a bit different. So also when it comes to regulatory compliance, which is the next, it's important that in each sector, in energy sector, the power, the oil and gas, renewables, there are laws in place and regulations in place, which has to be adhered to. We have the PIA, we have Climate Change Act, we have the New Electricity Act 2023, talks about licensing, permits, So these are things that if you're a compliance person, you have to take note that, what are the particular, if I'm in downstream, there's different kinds of permits and licenses. Upstream is different. So you need to know the type of permits and licenses that work for the particular sector, so that you'll be able to keep a track on it for your operations. Of course, if you get it wrong, of course, you can lose your license, the company can be fined, and these are liabilities you don't want to have on the financial books, basically. So licensing and regulations are always under the laws that govern a particular sector, And the good thing that PIA now has divided. We have now the upstream commission, we have the downstream and the midstream and the downstream authority, NPC limited and things like that. So the particular licenses that you need to have, the past used to be DPR, which is now NPC. We have a long list of licenses, to tell you that you have to have a license to operate. If you want to take for example, a vessel offshore and everything, and a long list. At one time in my career, I think for like 5, 6, 7 years, I was into compliance a lot in the oil and gas industry, and at one time I had over 100 licenses to keep an eye on. So what I did was, with the help of a great software, I just have everything there uploaded on it, and 90 days before it expires, it prompts me, so I know that I start renewing process of all those licenses before it expires. Because when it expires, then regulators will come knocking on your door and say they're fine or they revoke your license and you can't do a particular work you're supposed to do for your clients, basically. So when it comes to dispute resolution, why it's important is that in contracting first, it's important that you have there must be clarity in dispute resolution. Why? Because one, dispute resolution talks about the law that governs transaction, one. He also talks about the dispute resolution mechanism. For example, if you want to go to court or you want to go to alternative dispute resolutions like arbitrations and mediation, and the like, he also protects you against forum shopping. Now, forum shopping is the ability of a party to go and look for a court or a dispute resolution mechanisms that will be favorable to it. For example, you have a dispute resolution clause in your agreement, and it's not specific about where you take. It just says, the Nigerian law and dispute resolution shall be done in Nigeria. Nigeria is a large place. So if a party feels like, I think the High Court of Lagos are always more favorable towards complaints, then he takes his case there, and the contractor says, I think the High Court of Delta is always favorable towards me. It goes there. So in the process, you might have two different parallel law cases in different courts, and there might be different judgments for it. So it creates that ambiguity. So it's important that it's clear, that, this is what I want. I want it to be in High Court of Lagos, or I want it to be in the arbitration at multi-door courthouse in Lagos. It has to be clear. Language of court has to be very clear, and or else, it gives a lot of jurisdictional issues. And guess what? When it's open-ended, jurisdiction is fundamental in a law court, for example, that even if you can raise it up even in Supreme Court at any time during the appeal levels, because, for example, if there's a decision issue in a case, for example, there are 3 or 4 options. One, where was the contract signed? That decision can be applicable. 2, where was the job done? That decision can be applicable. 3, where's both parties' principal offices? That decision can be applicable. So it's important that it's quite clear. Also, most of the contracts in Nigeria, because we still have a bit of a disbelief in the judicial system, I find out that a lot of contracts now have foreign jurisdictions attached, or laws of England. For example, there's nothing like a law of United Kingdom, because it creates ambiguity. You have the Scotland, you have Wales, you have England. So we're in the United Kingdom. And there's nothing like laws of England and Wales. That changed like 2020, 2015 or thereabouts, because there's a Welsh law now stands a bit different from the English law. They still rely on English law for some things, but it's quite different. So if you say law of England and Wales, that means you're creating foreign shopping opportunity. It's either you go to England or you go to Wales. So if you want law of England, write law of England. If you want Wales, like laws of Wales. But it's also very important, I found out that in practice, most lawyers just say, England will be fine, we'll be fine. But if you don't understand the law, don't agree to it. For example, now, a contract that doesn't have force majeure. Force majeure is basically saying that when things are God made, or things that you can't think of to happens and finds a way of disrupting the contract, like maybe excessive flood or war. Those are things on that moment, the contract is supposed to be suspended, or depending on what the contract states. But ideally, those are things beyond what you can handle. So those things tend to either suspend or end the contract. That's what they call force majeure, basically. So force majeure now, if you don't have it in the contract, for example, there's a concept under English common law that says because the doctrine of frustration, for example. So if you read laws of England and you don't have a force majeure clause in your contract, that means technically the law of England on frustration kicks in. So it's important that when you're signing to a governing law, you also know that law and you know if that law will be favorable to you if something happens. So it's quite important on that. So this is just a rundown on basically what we should know when it comes to contract, regulatory compliance, and these resolutions. I guess we might have further discussions and questions as we proceed in today's class. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ayobami, for that very comprehensive overview on the topic. Thank you. While you were talking, Mr. Afolabi joined the call. So, Mr. Afolabi, just so you know the drill, so I'm calling on you so that you give us your own perspective on contract, regulatory compliance, and dispute resolution in the energy sector.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm going to start my video today because I'm joining you from the kitchen. So good morning, everybody. Good morning to the participants online, and good morning to everybody live. I believe Ayobami has done a whole lot of justice to this topic, a very whole lot. I don't know if I'm audible, sir.
Yeah, audible, sir.
Yes. So I think he has done a lot of justice to the topic. Especially covering the oil and gas part, what APGs are, what contracts that you need, and compliance that is necessary in this instance. So I'll just brush more on the electrical part. So on the electricity side of things, all right, I'm going to start from regulatory. The regulatory aspect of electricity is a whole lot. All right. I remember Obama saying that in oil companies, you might have up to 100 legislations or regulations to comply with. It's a bit lesser on the electricity side. And what most companies do on the electricity side is to put together what we call a regulatory rule book. All right. The regulatory rule book is basically a compendium of obligations in which the company is liable to under various laws and regulations. So the regulatory department pulls out those obligations, those laws, and then puts it in what we call a rule book, and then cascades these obligations into the separate departments that are responsible for these obligations. So for instance, you can have the technical department responsible for technical standards. You can have the safety department responsible for safety issues, all right? And they in turn put this together in order to create a regulatory framework for how the company would run. On the contract side, there's a whole lot of contracts, from your power purchase agreement to your bilateral power purchase agreement to your industry agreement. So for the electricity side, you have what we'll call industry agreements, what you have client-facing agreements, all right? And then what you have customer-facing agreements. So for the industry agreements, these are the major agreements that anchor the electricity company to the grid. So you might have something like a grid sharing agreement, you might have a power purchase agreement, you might have basically different types of agreements, which anchor you to the industry. Agreements with TCN, agreements with embed, capacity agreements. So those are agreements that anchor you to the industry. For the customer-facing side, you have what you usually call your Form 74, which is the agreement between the DISCO and the customer. It has its own obligations between the DISCO and the customers. On the vendor-facing side, You have agreements with various vendors for services they render to you. Either you are constructing, let's say you are constructing an 11 kV line, all right? You would have an agreement for the construction of an 11 kV line. Like Ayobami said, you put your APGs in place. If there is no performance, you call on the APG. The bank is liable to repay you the sum you've advanced to the vendor. All right. And then I'll go to, that's for the contract side of it and the regulatory side. And then I would go to the final one. Just a minute. I'm just trying to make sure I check my notes. So I'll go to the final one, which is dispute resolution. In the power sector, dispute resolution is a bit different. Dispute resolution between customers and distribution companies is handled by NEC. That's the NERC. The NERC has a vehicle called the Forum Office, which is situated in different parts of Nigeria under different discos that handle the issues that come out of electricity operations between the disco and the customer. All right. And then they also have one more level, all right, which is the dispute resolution panel that also handles issues between discos and other discos. That's disputes between licensees. All right. Now, most issues in the electricity sector are resolved using alternative dispute resolution mechanism. So either the commission mediates and gives direction, or the commission directs that dispute to the dispute resolution panel, which gives direction, or the forum office issues a decision. Sorry. Or the forum office issues a decision in that regard. And the decision of the forum office is always appealed to the DRP, to the dispute resolution panel, to the commission itself. So if you're unable to implement a decision of the forum office, you appeal to the commission within the given timelines. In very rare cases, cases are instituted at the Federal High Court, all right, where licensees have grievances against the commission. Cases are instituted at the Federal High Court. But I've, over time, with experience, seen courts in Lagos, all right, rule on electricity issues, because Lagos State has a power sector reform law. I've over time seen courts in Lagos rule on electricity issues, especially when it relates to fairness or other disputes that have elements of crime. For instance, where somebody has bypassed their meter, where customers are caught tampering with electrical lines. So the magistrate courts in Lagos State rule on such issues because they have elements of crime. Basically, I'm going to stop there and let the presenter give their presentation. I'll take it from there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Afolabi, for your input and your insights, and it was very educative. Thank you very much to our both mentors. We're actually expecting 5 mentors today, but we only had 2. So thank God for that. Thank you very much. So I'll be calling on the presenters for today. You can unmute yourself and share your today. So you can start the presentation now. Wait, I can't see Blossom. It wasn't. Oh. Okay, okay, she's back. Blossom, I've been calling on you to start your presentation. Can you hear me, Blossom?
Yes, I can, but the network is shaky.
Okay, who is the backup presenter? I don't know if the person is on the call, so maybe he or she can step in for you. Amaka is the backup presenter, so I don't know. Is it the Chiamaka I'm saying? Chiamaka is here. Blossom, are you still having network issues? You are muted, Blossom. Okay, any of the group member, I believe the whole group, it's just one group for the energy industry. So I believe you all made a research together. So anyone that's having a very good network can just step in and bail our presenters out of this network situation. Any volunteer, please?
I'm trying to see if I can step in, but I'm having
I don't know what's wrong.
I'm having difficulties sharing my screen.
Okay, someone can share the screen for you from the group. Let's choose someone on the group to help you share your screen. I don't know, Ebube, can you share the screen for her?
Let me try.
Okay, Ebube, sharing the screen for you so you can start the presentation now. Chiamaka.
All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen, Ebube.
I don't know how to do. Okay.
So is my screen showing?
You're seeing Ebube's screen.
All right, thank you. Mark, I can go and can start your presentation.
Okay.
Slides, yes.
All right. Please, can you like scroll up a bit? Up, okay. So energy contracts are the backbone of the energy industry. They govern the exploration, production, and transportation, as well as distribution of energy resources. The contract established the legal framework for energy projects and ensure that the allocation of responsibilities benefits parties. This simply means that if there is no contract, like contracts are basically the foundation of anything we want to do in the energy industry. When there's no contract, there wouldn't be anything done, right? So types of contracts include the PSCs, which are the production sharing contracts, the power purchase agreements called the PPAs, and the gas supply agreements. Please move forward. Thank you. Up. Just go up, okay. Thank you, it's okay. So the regulators or the regulatory agencies of energy contracts are the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources, the FMPR. We have the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, the NUPRC, and we have others like the Petroleum Products Pricing Regulatory Agencies, which are the PPPRA, the Federal Ministry of Environment, etc., etc. Please, can you go up? Okay. So the principal Nigerian law is the Constitution, is the primary piece of legislation regulating the exploration, production, and distribution of petroleum. The Constitution and the PIA vest in the federal government the entire ownership and control of the petroleum resources under and upon land in Nigeria. So pursuant to the PIA, the prospecting, exploration, production, and distribution of petroleum resources may only be undertaken with consent of the Minister of Petroleum. The Oil Pipeline Act regulates the construction, operation, and maintenance of gas pipelines and associated infrastructure. This legislation is also enforced by the NUPRC, like I earlier mentioned. So let's move to the fiscal regime. The Petroleum Industry Act and the Companies Income Tax Act governs the fiscal regime, which regulates the taxation of profits made from the production and distribution of petroleum. The Deep Offshore and Island Basin Production Sharing Contract Act, the JIIPCC. The PIA governs the taxation regime of upstream petroleum operations in Nigeria. The CETA governs the taxation regime of midstream, downstream petroleum operations in Nigeria, provides an applicable tax of 30% of the company's chargeable profits. So we have seen how different regulatory body governs different aspects of the energy industry, the upstream, the downstream. So moving on to dispute resolution in the energy sector, like our mentor mentioned, the dispute resolution in energy industry is quite different from the normal dispute resolution. It may be given to a particular body, or sometimes alternative dispute resolution can be applied, which means that the company may choose to mediate depending on what they want, or choose to refer the dispute to the dispute resolution body. Also, there are other dispute resolution like negotiation, arbitration. Negotiation is basically the companies or the parties involved trying to see if they can negotiate or if they can reach an agreement. Then you have arbitration. Arbitration is more of a formal way of dispute resolution, in that at the end of an arbitration, there are awards given. And when these awards are given, they are binding on the parties. It's just like a court judgment. We also have litigation, which all of us should be familiar with. Litigation is the more formal aspect of dispute resolution, approaching the court and trying to settle disputes with the court. So in conclusion, it is evident that the energy industry is vastly regulated, ranging from the regulatory authorities to the legal framework and fiscal regime. Thus, parties in the energy industry should ensure compliance with laid down regulations as they enter into their various contracts. Also, dispute is an almost inevitable phenomenon in various sectors. Thus, parties are enjoined to adopt fast and suitable method in resolving their energy dispute. So, in other words, before you enter into any energy industry, it is advisable that in your contract clause, you should try to relate the dispute mechanism you would want to use to deal with matters or disputes arising from the contract, because we all know that dispute is something that is inevitable. At most times, you may end up having some situation where you will need to resolve one thing or the other. So if parties are entering into contracts, they should always try to have a good mechanism that suits their contract in resolving their disputes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chiamaka, and also Ebube for sharing the screen. Thank you. Blossom's network was not allowing her to talk today and present. I know she was the one prepared to present. So thank you very much to the both of us, to the both of the group members that stepped in. I'll be giving the floor to our mentors to comment before we take our question, comment on the presentation and make any corrections. I believe Mr. Ayobami has made some corrections earlier while he was talking. But before then, I encourage everyone to quickly put on your videos, smile for the camera. Let's take our picture. It's picture time. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. All right, I'm taking a few screenshots. Mr. Ayobami, it's over to you now.
Okay. So in addition to a couple of things I said earlier, yeah. So basically, it's. I mean, I like to see fanciful slides. I mean, the design was pretty good, and I'm happy that at least based on from other sections I've been having in the past, I'm happy that you had a kind of a conclusion. But the conclusion, I wanted to see more originality in the sense that your own opinion of how things can be better. You know, if possible, some if you want to criticize and offer solutions, yes, that's also good. You know, so I just wanted a bit more originality, not just you doing the research and telling us what exists. You know. Also, I noticed that there might be one or two old laws there, and that's why I thought that the need for referencing also matters. Why you need to reference, apart from one, academically, you need to cite where you're getting the facts from. Two, you also reference because if for any reason or the other there's a in a legal system there's a law that supersedes the one you're quoting, you know that it's the material you used to reference was an old material or something. So it just gives a bit of, you know, that it's an old law that was referenced, not a new law, or an old textbook that was referenced, not a new textbook. So referencing is also important. I mean, where you're getting your facts from, give them some kudos, you know. I mean, yeah, and apart from that, there's some areas of improvement. We spoke about types of contracts. There are more than the three you mentioned. You didn't mention the marginal field contracts. You didn't mention the joint operating agreement. You didn't mention the service contracts. Then Afolabi also mentioned some other contracts that in the power sector that should have been included. So that area could be a bit more robust. Yeah. So Also, the regulators part, I didn't see the National Council for Climate Change, which takes care of the more of the renewables and the carbon neutrality 2060 goal. And also the energy transition plan also wasn't mentioned, because these are regulations and laws that guides the energy industry. Then, if possible, also maybe Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Act and the Carbon Act, because they have an effect on deep offshore oil exploration. So those regulations are also quite important in the energy oil and gas sphere. Then the legal framework, also the Electricity Act. I don't think I saw the Electricity Act 2023, which was signed recently. It was in there. Nigerian Energy Transition also, like I mentioned earlier, was in there. That's 2022 regulation. Then the Climate Change Act 2021 was also mentioned in the legal framework. So these are just things that can improve the presentation, but of course fairly well. I mean, it's fairly good that the key areas were well covered. So I think it's good, but of course it could be better also. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Ebami. I'm giving the floor to Mr. Afolabi. Mr. Afolabi, any inputs, please, before we take the question? While Mr. Afolabi
I have a lot of inputs.
Sasa, hold on. While Mr. Afolabi is giving his input, if you have any question, live question, you can send it on the chat box. You can just raise your hand so that when he's done, you can start asking your questions. I believe we have only one question, and the group members informed me that other questions will be asked during the session. So we are waiting for other questions too. So I can go ahead, sir. Thank you.
I'm trying to share my screen. Just a minute. Okay. I can't find that here, but so I'll just stop this and then speak to it. Just a minute. Okay, I don't think this is supporting document type. All right. So it's not supporting document type. So I'll just speak to it. I'd like to thank the participants for their very good, or should I say job well done. I'm impressed by the quality of the presentation. I'm also impressed by the facts, but I believe that the content of the presentation could go a bit more to address the topic of today. So we're talking about, if I'm very correct, we're talking about regulation, compliance, contract, and dispute resolution. Blossom, am I correct? Blossom? Sorry, is Blossom there? Oh, am I correct? Sorry, I think you're in the way. But basically, Hussein, that's what we were talking about, right? So
I didn't.
Yes, sir. That's the topic. That's the topic, sir. You're correct.
So that's the topic. So my expectations for today in terms of regulation was to see who were the key players that were involved in the regulation of the sector. All right, so for the power sector, who are the key players? For the oil and gas sector, who are the key players? Power includes on-grid and off-grid renewables. So I was expecting to hear the likes of NEC, MBET, TCN, NEMCO, Central Bank of Nigeria, the Bureau of Public Enterprises, ONEM, which is the market operator. All right, and there are various roles in regulating the power sector. For the oil and gas arm, I was expecting to hear about the role of the agencies newly created under the new act. All right, and then the segmentation into upstream, downstream, midstream, just as Ayobami has said, and the various roles of those agencies, all right, in regulating that industry. But then I'll just quickly go over the one for the power sector. Like I said earlier, the power sector is regulated by NEC, all right? And everybody knows that NEC was formed basically for the regulation of the power sector. It does not do any other responsibility outside things that has to do with power. NEC is made up of 7 full-time commissioners with a chairman. The chairman has a tenure of 5 years. The commissioners have tenures of 4 years, all right? And it receives most of its inputs from the Federal Ministry of Power, which is the ministry directly responsible for power in the whole of Nigeria, all right? And NEC plays a regulatory function using what we call secondary instruments. Secondary instruments such like subsidiary regulations, all right, which are made further to Section 96 of the former Electric Power Sector Reform Act of 2005. So that act is now a 2023 act, all right? But I don't think any new regulation has been made under the 2023 act that I know of. But under the old regime, all right, we had regulations on standards, on rights and obligations and duties of licensees. There were regulations on administration. There were regulations on fees, levies, charges payable. There were regulations on even information required from licensees. There were regulations on customer-related matters, all right? The procedure for market monitoring. There were various regulations that we had. So some of these were like the regulation for the investment in electricity networks, 2015. That regulation guides investments. How do communities make investments in electricity networks? Let's say, for instance, your community wants to buy a transformer and donate it into the electricity distribution network. What is the process? Can you get your money back? You know, you will hear that some areas are all contributing 10,000 naira to buy a transformer. What is the process guiding that under the law? Do you understand? If you put your transformer into an electricity distribution network, does it automatically become a property of the DISCO? All right? So there's a regulation for that. There's a Nigerian Electricity Supply and Installation Standards Regulation 2015. We call that NESIS. All right? There's the NEC Embedded Generation Regulations, which deals with embedded generation. There's the NEC Independent Electricity Distribution Network Regulation, which deals with IEDMs. So my entire expectation from this presentation was to see what are the regulations in which we are attempting regulatory compliance on. All right? What are the regulations in which, so we were talking about regulatory compliance. What is the regulation we are complying with? There cannot be compliance without there first being a regulation to comply to. For instance, if you see most discos asking customers to pay for meters, when they say pay for a meter, we'll come and install it in your house, that is done under the NEC Meter Asset Provider Regulations of 2018. So my expectation is to see, oh, this is the regulation. Do you understand me? We're talking about regulatory compliance. These are the things we are complying to. And the entire aim of regulation in each market is to ensure that the market is healthy, to ensure that there's competition. All right? To ensure that there's competition among market participants, to ensure that there's efficient pricing. All right? So, for instance, in the power sector, we have what we call the market rules, which are the rules developed by the system operator in consultation with market participants, approved by the President of the Federal Republic upon recommendation of the minister, which guides the entire operation of the Nigerian electricity supply industry. That's the market rules. It's under these market rules that you now begin to look at the organization and trading arrangements of electricity in Nigeria. If you are selling power to Nigeria and you have to shut down power for Nigeria, It's under this market rules that you begin to look at that. All right. Tariff methodology. Why do we sell power at the price that we sell power per kilowatt? All right. That's regulatory compliance. When they say NEC wants to increase power to 100 naira per kilowatt and everybody is shouting, let the poor breathe. What is stopping NEC from increasing that? It's regulatory compliance. So for that one, it's called the multi-year tariff order, MITO. All right. And there's a modeling that goes into MITO based on load, demand, depreciation, capital recovery, return on investment, exchange rate, and all of that. So I was hoping to see that dichotomy. I was hoping to see that richness in the presentation, which I didn't see. Also, I was expecting to see the agreements, the power purchase agreements. All right. Agreements like the participation agreement for the transnational stage of electricity market, 10. So if you have a DISCO that's participating in the market today from a coal distribution, Ikeja Electric, Benin, everybody would have signed a participation agreement. All right, I was expecting to hear things like the transmission use of system agreement, which is the TUOS, the distribution use of system agreement, which is the DUOS. All right, I didn't hear any of this. So if we're talking about contracts in the sector, these are the contracts that guide the functioning of the power sector today. So we are hoping that under the new Electricity Act, we'll see a new contracting regime, we'll see new regulations come up, but pending when they come up, we're still using the old one. I'm yet to see contracts under the new act. I envisage that we'll basically be having bilateral contracting under the new act. All right? We'll be having bilateral contracting, we'll be having a whole lot of franchising by the time the DISCO begins to split their operations based on states, local governments, depending on how they want to split it, or area by area. But we'll be seeing franchising coming up. We'll be seeing meter asset provider regulations coming up because people need to be metered. All right, there's going to be a new regulation and a new way for doing this business. On the oil and gas side, I was expecting to see agreements that has to do with bulk purchase. Do you understand me? Bulk purchase of petroleum products from refineries. All right, if you are manufacturing locally. Ship chartering agreements to bring fuel in from Netherlands to Nigeria, from Germany to Nigeria, diesel from Russia or from Ukraine to Nigeria. All right? Do you understand me? Bulk storage agreements. So basically, I didn't see that richness. While I'm very okay with the presentation, I expected more research and I expect a whole lot from this class. So I believe for the next class, we should look at more research. And like Ayobami said, also look at more referencing because it shows the depth of the research you've done and the kind of academic work that you've put into the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Falabi, for that contribution, correction, and more explanation of the kind of research our mentees are supposed to be making. I believe all our mentees have taken note of that. Quickly, we'll be taking the question and answer. I'm still waiting for our mentees to send in their questions. Let me check the chat also. There's no question here yet, so I'm still waiting for the questions. I'll be sending the question that was asked before the session on the chat box to everyone. I'll give our two mentors to respond to that. What dispute resolution method is more viable in the energy sector? Mr. Ayobami, you can go first, then Mr. Folavi will also answer.
Okay. Okay, sorry, I'm just trying to look at the question again. Okay, what dispute resolution method is more viable in the energy sector? Okay, yeah, so basically we have seen a bit of more of alternative dispute resolution in contrast to the conventional litigation because of a lot of reasons. One is it's faster. Secondly, we look at confidentiality. I think 2018, I was once involved in a $99 million oil and gas alternative dispute resolution, and up until now, it's not in the news. So you don't even know the parties, so that's how confidentiality is. Unlike the conventional litigation that you just see them in newspapers. And so also I was involved in as a in-house counsel with the external counsel in the Federal High Court, and barely a week after I saw it in legal papers, in legal notes of a legal page of a newspaper, so that's how it is. But right now, energy, probably commercial, has switched over from litigation to alternative resolution because one, like I said, it's faster. It's more expensive though, yeah, I must say, but it's faster. But also there are challenges, like it's more expensive, subject matter experts, I've been in a couple of from in-house, a couple of dispute resolution that when the dispute resolution body gives a mediator or arbitrator, and we say no, this person doesn't look like he's qualified. You read the mediator's background, it's like he doesn't even have an energy background, so that means we still need a lot of people, our arbitrators and our mediators that have energy experience, so expertise might be an issue. Expense might also be an issue because it's pretty expensive. That $99 million, the one that I was involved in. I knew when the bill came up, it was like, what, in Nigeria? So what's more viable now for energy companies usually at the time of dispute resolutions, and you see them go from negotiation first, where senior management of both parties come and sit together, put a timeline to see how they can resolve it. Then if it doesn't work, then maybe go to mediation, whereby both parties are there. Mediator tries to see how he can, meet both parties and, sit and before now moving to arbitration, which arbitrators have to give an award, and can be enforced by the law court. So we have seen more of alternative dispute resolution be more viable in that sector. From the conventional law courts that takes almost forever. Yeah. So that's it.
Thank you very much, Sayobami, for that answer to the question. Mr. Folabi can also add his input before we move ahead.
Okay, for the power sector, well, a whole lot of our litigations are public, right? Because most of it are between customers and the distribution companies. There are also ones that are private, which details, unfortunately, I cannot share here. But for the public ones, you would always see customers suing discos at the NEC forum, either for excessive electricity billing, replacement of meters. Their light has been probably caught, indiscriminately or without notice, or they've probably not been at home for months and bills have still been coming. So all of those are things that we see in dispute resolution, but a much more alternative dispute resolution mechanism is adopted, much more like mediation. That's what the forum looks at. It's much more mediation than litigation. For the litigations that we have, they are mostly criminal in nature, where customers have tampered with the electricity meters, or where people have been caught tampering with transformers, electricity lines, and so on and so forth. So basically, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Folabi and Mr. Ayobami. I can see, okay, the petroleum industry, okay. only changed the Petroleum Industry Act 2021 only changed the nomenclature for oil mining lease to petroleum mining lease. Also, I've heard us use power and energy interchangeably. Please, are they one and same thing?
Okay, sorry. So yeah, on the mining lease, yes, oil mining lease and petroleum mining lease is the same thing. So, but under the PIA is being called petroleum mining lease. So in the upstream sector, there are basically three kind of licenses. There's the petroleum exploration license that allows you to go and explore crude oil. There's a petroleum prospecting license. That means when they're looking for oil, basically, you need a license to go look for oil. That's all. That's when it comes to the geologists going and looking for where is there oil and all those things. So that one you need a prospecting license. It's after you get a prospecting license and you get oil, they can apply for an exploration license to explore that oil. But petroleum mining lease basically allows you. So most likely, if you have a exploration license, you might most likely have a mining lease, because it's the mining lease that allows you to dispose the crude oil or natural gas you find from exploration. So that's the difference between those three licenses and the lease. So sorry, the second question, what's it? Sorry, let me check. I think there's another question that was. So I have heard you also use power and energy interchangeably. Please, are they one and the same thing? I know Afolabi will be curious to answer this question. So basically, energy, part of energy, power is part of energy, oil and gas is part of energy, renewables are part of energy. So power is just a type of energy, basically. That's it.
Mr. Afolabi, you can help us out with the second question.
Okay, maybe it's having some comms problem.
I don't know. Mr. Afolabi, are you still in the call with us? Someone says, Mr. Hussein, you jumped my question. Please, you can ask your question. I don't think I've jumped any question. Oh, if it's about the picture, we are still going to retake a picture. And kindly rename your phone or the name on your Zoom from iPhone, because I can't see your name. I'm just seeing iPhone. I know your name is not iPhone. So okay, Mr. Ayobami, before Mr. Afolabi joined us, I believe Mr. Afolabi was talking about having seen a more rich research on the next presentation. I would be informing you that this will be the last class with this set of mentees for this quarter. So if you have any word of advice on starting and sustaining a thriving career in the energy industry to all the energy enthusiasts and professionals on the call, I would like you to just give us a word or two on that before we leave today. I would also give the floor to Mr. Afolabi to do the same.
Yes.
So we can start taking that before Mr. Afolabi joins us.
Okay. First, I'll say, lucky you that you know what you want to do in law. It took me 4 or 5 years to know the area of law I wanted to concentrate in. And my first 4 or 5 years, I was going to court, I was a barrister, went to court in Nigeria and did a bit of a law practice in the UK also. Yeah, so before I found my niche in first maritime and oil and gas, and then a bit of power also, because I work in the power generation contracting basically. Afolabi is much of a more detailed power person. when it comes to regulatory compliance and when it comes to the transmission and distribution. He has quite a lot of sway in regulatory compliance, which you have heard him talk. I'm more of only contracting in power, and so the oil and gas industry has been over 8 or 9 years of my life. Power contracting has been a couple of years, and so I stumbled on all those just by chance, basically. But it's good that you know what you want, which is good. So it gives you a quick start, to your career. And then basically, like we say, energy is in different. There's the renewables, there's oil and gas and power. So maybe over the years, you might still want to distill further and see which one you want to straight on. But basically, it all has to do with the law is fast moving. The laws change rapidly. For example, the Arbitration and the then Arbitration Conciliation Act is now Arbitration and Mediation Act 2023. There's a new law about it. So that means you see new laws coming every day. You need to stay abreast of it. What you knew 2 years ago or 3 years ago, the rules of laws of courts even change also frequently. So you need to keep abreast of yourself. Most of the law firms big law firms in Nigeria have like a newsletter, and so just registering them. So most of them always give you a summary, tell you there's a law, give you a summary, but which I also encourage, go beyond the summary. Summary can only be on what they think is important, and there may be more important things that might not, since the summary might not be there. So read widely. A lot of things, you learn a lot of things from your colleagues, from your seniors. Just like, for example, I've learned quite some regulatory compliance in power from Afolabi today. So it's important that you have open mind. No lawyer is a arbiter of all knowledge. I think King George IV of England said something about woe betide the lawyer that knows all the laws. So basically, you're just supposed to know sometimes that, there's a law and I'll find the law. You don't need to know all the law, but it's good to have it. The major ones that involve the sector you want to concentrate in, know the laws, keep yourself totally abreast of it, regular updates, be on it. The agencies that are on the sector are quite important, and if you're into the compliance part, you have to keep a good relationship with those agencies, go there and know the people there, you get your job done pretty faster, and the law might say, the regulation and agency might say that, it takes 3 months to process his license, and based on relationship, you can get it as much as a month or two, because why? You can always follow up diligently on those applications. So basically, have an open mind, learn from your juniors, learn from your seniors. I mean, everybody has different experiences and a different knowledge on things. So have an open mind generally, but most importantly, you should want to know more about whatever field you want to concentrate in. So that's basically my word of advice. And I know that my LinkedIn DMs are always open. And of course, I know that Afolabi Afolabi has always been in this mentorship program, and so he's always open, I believe, to receiving your questions and helping as much as you can. Yeah. So thank you, and wish you God's grace in your careers. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you a lot. Very, very, very good advices for starting up a career. Our mentees, I hope you're taking some of those points down, and I wish you all luck on your career ahead. I don't think we have Mr. Afolabi yet. Mr. Afolabi, can you hear us now?
I can hear you. Sorry, apologies. A call came in.
Okay,
so just like Abani said,
so before you take that, I think there's a question that we were asking you before on the chat box.
Okay.
Yeah, that
Sorry, what's the question?
We use power.
So that we use power and energy interchangeably. So you're saying I lost you? I don't know if I'm all still audible.
Yes, I think that's the question, the one you wanted to ask about the power and energy interchangeability.
Oh, so like power is a sub-component of energy. So energy is oil, gas, power, basically all energy sources. So power just deals with the electrical energy component of it, which is on-grid and off-grid power, basically. So that's what power thing is. So energy is oil, gas, everything together. I don't know if that explains that. So I think we've lost Hussein.
Yes, I think we lost you, Hussein. So Hussein wanted you to also give a word of advice for the mentees.
So in this field, there are two things you need. You need law, and you also need to understand economics. You need to understand the basic rudiments of what we call demand and supply. Everything in the energy industry is based on demand and supply, from the prices of oil to the kilowatt of power that is generated and sold. That is sold. So you need to understand that. And how do you get this basic education? One, you need to understand contract law, the law of contract. Things like KU versus carbolic smoke ball of 200 level are actually very, very important in this industry. Very, very, very important. You also need to understand company law. All right. You need to understand company law. You need to understand contracts. You need to understand how torts, negligence works. All right. Because these are the basic foundations in which these industries are built on. For example, you have an electricity line that snaps all of a sudden and falls on a child that is playing football under it and kills the child. The question is, who is responsible? And then your principles in the law of torts begin to create killing. So you need, yes, your legal foundation, but you also need to go beyond that to also get a bit of knowledge in economic principles. You need to understand things like Pareto optimality. You need to understand things like competition law. Competition law is law and economics, and it will do you a whole lot if you learn about competition law. How firms are able to trade, what is efficiencies, at what point do firms achieve significant or dominant positions. So these are the very, very key things. And like Ayobami said, as mentors, my DM is open, my email is open, my phone number is open. They are all available, which is saying you can connect with me on LinkedIn, ask questions. If you need materials, request for them. I'm able to provide everything that is within my knowledge and that I have to make sure that this part is a good one. And the best thing about this is there are not so many lawyers here, at least on the power side. There are not many. I know oil and gas, yes, everybody wants to. Growing up, everybody wanted to be an oil and gas. But on the power lawyer, I'm yet to see anybody saying, oh, I want to be a power lawyer. So there is a market here for lawyers. There is a market here. Ayobami is smiling. There's also a market for oil and gas lawyers. So please, it's a whole brand new market, upstream, midstream, and downstream. It's a whole brand new market. Especially, I stumbled into a market last week in chartering vessels. And someone was telling me, oh, if you want this vessel, it's $50,000 per day for a bulwark or something like that. And I'm like, hey, Joe, anything $50,000 per day. So if you're a lawyer and then you're looking at, oh, if I should do this in private, maybe I'll get 1% of this deal. And then the vessel is supposed to stay probably 2 years on site at $50,000 per day. And it's going to stay for 2 years. Well, do the math. Thank you very much, everybody.
Ozane, you're muted.
Sorry, I'm muted and I've been talking. Sorry. Thank you very much, Mr. Ayobami. Thank you very much, Mr. Falabi, for joining us today and giving us the advice on today's topic and also on starting a career in the industry. I think some of our mentees do not get the picture time, so I encourage everyone to just turn on your videos for just a few seconds so we take it again before we go. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Taking the screenshots, thank you. Okay, that means there's no question from our mentees. There's no more question. Like our mentors say, you can reach out to them on their LinkedIn, and if you want their direct contact, you can reach out to me or my colleagues. And also, kindly you can also use the opportunity of the JIIPCC private mentorship session that you can also have to connect with our mentors and also to get life hacks, secret lessons on the industry. That will be all for today. Thank you very much once again, Mr. Ayobami and Mr. Falabi. It's so sad that we couldn't join Mr. Falabi to eat his delicious food that he's cooking today. I wish he could just send us some through WhatsApp so that we enjoy with him.
Afolabi went quiet after he finished cooking. He didn't even tell us to join him. Yeah.
It is well. It's like 12 degrees outside.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Bye. All right. Happy weekend, everyone.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you.
Happy weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.